making sure children are healthy, safe, loved, ready to learn, succeeding in school and in life. This is Our Children, a program brought to you by the Children's Trust. Good morning. I'm Ileana Borella.
And I'm Modesto Abedi, President and CEO of the Children's Trust.
And together we welcome you to Our Children. Well, there are only 2 weeks left now to go in this year's state legislative session, and cuts to programs and services are definitely on the horizon.
With up to $4 billion in anticipated cuts, this means your family probably will be impacted in one way or another.
And if you have children at home like I do, more cuts to education after several years of consecutive cuts are deeply alarming.
To talk about how all these reductions will impact the classroom, we have 3 guests. They are Carolyn Nelson Godert, President of the Miami-Dade County PTSA, Frederick Ingram, Secretary-Treasurer of United Teachers of Dade, and Ron Steiger, Assistant Chief Budget Officer at Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
Well, of course, we want to welcome all of you for being with us this morning. And this is a very important subject we're talking about this morning. A lot of people very passionate about it, rightly so, I think. And Carolyn, recently the Miami Herald published an opinion piece that you wrote with someone else. And I want to share something that Carolyn wrote with you. And I'm going to quote here. She wrote, "Where is the outrage? Recently, Miami-Dade voters recall the county mayor, citing outrage over increased taxes. But where is the outrage of our citizens over the decimation of education funds for our children?" That was Carolyn's question in the Herald, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Where is the outrage? Anybody?
It's not there.
It's not there.
The community is not outraged. Parents aren't outraged. Family members and students aren't yet.
Why?
Because of the district. The district has been so good about managing the funds that they do have, despite the cuts. We haven't felt it in the classroom. Our students haven't felt it. Our parents haven't felt it. And as a result, they're not angry yet. I think that might change when we go back to school in the fall. I hope not. But I expect that there will be so many changes and such drastic changes that they will at that point get outraged, and it will be too late.
So maybe you're doing your job too well.
I hope so.
You feel the same way, that perhaps because you are managing the problem,
I think
people are not quite aware of how bad it is?
I think Carolyn makes a good point. I also think that it is, everyone has their own struggles right now, their own internal pocketbook. We have to make sure that students get as good of an education as possible with the funds that we're given. So when you make a reduction, you want to make reductions that are as far away from the classroom as possible, and that's where we've tried. So for this district's long history, we have enhanced in as many ways as possible. But when we started to make reductions, you make reductions in places where you think that students have as little chance of feeling the impact as possible.
Ron, with the governor's budget proposing 10% cut, where is that now, and how might a cut, if it does take place, of that magnitude impact the classroom and teachers and students?
Well, you're right. What the governor's 10% cut was just a proposal. The entities that actually build our budget are the Florida Senate and the Florida House. So the Florida House has passed a 6.8% reduction, and the Senate has passed a 6.2% reduction. The next step in the process is for the 2 entities to go into committee, and they negotiate, and they bargain on what individual parts of the budget they can come to an agreement on. And that's exactly where we are right now. And we hope to be done and session closed on May 6th. There's a possibility of that getting pushed back, but we certainly hope not. How that impacts the classroom is, first of all, determined on what exactly our cut is. If the House and the Senate just come to the midpoint on where they are now, it would be a $153 million reduction for Miami-Dade in gross revenue. that would be a severe impact. It would be one of the largest single-year budget cuts in the district's history, probably the largest single-year revenue reduction in the district's history.
What might some options be for the board, for the superintendent?
Well, the superintendent has said that everything, when you have a reduction of that magnitude, everything is an option. There should be no hidden parts of the budget. So what we have is we have 3 separate committees. A parents committee, a principals committee, and staff committee that are all coming up independently on what they think the best cuts would be, depending on what our revenue reduction is. And at the end of that process, we go to the board and we go to the superintendent and we recommend, the superintendent will recommend to the board, here is where we think we should go to meet the reduction that we need. Now that said, we've made over $500 million of reductions over the last 3 years, and those reductions have stayed away from the classroom, as Carolyn said earlier. And it's important that when you do make a reduction, and I can promise you the next reduction is no different, it will start at the top. And our central office budget over the past 3 years has been decreased by over 50%. We have 50% of salaries, 50% of non-salaries. Any reduction we make will always start at the top before you ever go to the classroom, regardless of the size.
But those numbers are frightening, and the prospects are scary. And I wonder, Frederick, are we still anticipating? Are you anticipating teacher layoffs, particularly in the specialty areas like the arts and physical education? Is that still something that you're concerned with?
Well, certainly that's been the trend around the county, around the country. When you talk about
Miami-Dade.
Well, in Miami-Dade, I don't think we have made those decisions at this point because we're still waiting for the legislature to close and the budget to
But
be.
do you anticipate?
Well, of course, because nothing is off the table right now.
Right.
And I think when you start to cut and you talk about $150 million in cuts, you have to put everything on the table. But this only hurts kids. Art, music, PE, band, those types of things help students to be interested in school so that we can teach them the core areas and make sure that they're engrossed in the classroom and in schools. So I think, again, certainly the trend has been to start with electives because there are certain statutory requirements that you have the core areas,
Right.
the math, science, reading, and English.
So they're more vulnerable.
Absolutely, they are. Absolutely.
Carolyn, what about class size? People voted for class size reductions in 2 referendums. But now the legislature wants to increase most class sizes to save money. Carolyn, can you explain how we are going about this and how you think this will sit with parents and teachers?
Well, there are 2 bills right now. House Bill 1466 and Senate Bill 5101, which are working their way through this legislature, which will change what the core classes are defined as. Core classes are normally English, math, science, but they want to change that. So when those core classes change, non-core classes can have a larger class size. What parents voted on was 18, 22, and 25. For our kindergarten through 3rd grade, 4th through 8th grade was 22 class size limit, and our high school students having a size of 25. When those core classes change, we anticipate that there will be larger classes in the non-core classes. And how are parents going to feel about that? Not so happy. We voted for class size amendment, like you said, twice. And to have the legislature come back and manipulate that, not a good thing.
Very quickly, Frederick, because we have to go to a break real soon, but what about the change in how teachers are compensated? Tenure, as we know it, is out the door, and now it's academic achievement by students. How are teachers preparing for that?
Well, there is lots of uncertainty for teachers across the county. We don't know the true impact of this until it comes to our county because there are so many question marks behind this piece of legislation. There are tests still to be made. There are tests to be bought and piloted. So we don't know how to teach those particular areas that they're wanting us to teach. And also, there's so many things that teachers don't control.
So this is still up in the air?
Well, no, because 736 has passed.
Okay.
And 736 is law now. So we will be accommodating to that law. But what we will also do...
I got to go.
Sure.
So on that thought, obviously,
Sure.
a lot of changes will have to be made. We do want to bring you something to mind, and that's the fact that school is about to end, and Most of you will probably be thinking about the summer already. I know the kids are. Summer camps. If your children might be thinking about summer camp, we'd encourage you to pick up one of these summer camp guides from the Children's Trust. You can pick it up at any public supermarket. Lots of information in there that you would be interested in. And later on in our program, we're going to tell you about what's new at this year's Family Expo. But up next, one of the leading child advocates in the nation will join us to talk about the children's movement of Florida and its agenda in Tallahassee. Back with David Lawrence Jr. in just a moment.
This right?